Hello everyone, and welcome to the 2024 Year Update and Q&A video. Last year was an incredible year for the channel. For the first time ever, I was able to bring you videos from outside the US with a visit to Canada. In September, we celebrated the YouTube channel's 15th anniversary with a special look back at trains I filmed in the year 2003, which was the first full year that I filmed trains. We passed 950,000 subscribers, 2 videos reached the 100 million view mark, and the channel as a whole passed an unbelievable 1 billion total video views, the first railroad-themed channel on YouTube to do so. It was indeed an amazing year, so a big thanks to everyone for coming along with me for the last decade and a half. It has been and continues to be the journey of a lifetime. As we begin a new year and I prepare for several new exciting videos, trips, and more, it's time once again to talk about what I have planned for the channel over the next 12 months, as well as address many of the questions you asked me in December. With the 1 million subscriber and 1,000 video milestones fast approaching and likely arriving either later this year or early next year, there's a lot to be excited about. So, without further delay, let's take a look at what I have planned for this year, and then we'll cover as many of your questions as I can. To start off, one of the things I get asked about the most is the current status of former coaster locomotive number 2105. As many of you know, in 2022, I partnered with the Southern California Railway Museum in Paris, California to acquire the 2105 from the Pacific Southwest Railway Museum and save it for preservation. Currently, the locomotive is in safe storage with BNSF Railway at their Commerce, California diesel locomotive servicing facility, along with former Santa Fe Railroad SD45 locomotive 5704, which is also going to the SoCal Railway Museum. The reason both of these locomotives are in storage right now and not at the museum is because the museum is currently not connected to the National Railway Network. In 2011, as part of upgrades that were made to extend Metrolink commuter train service from Riverside to Paris, California, the museum's old track connection to the main line in downtown Paris was removed to allow the rest of the tracks to be completely rebuilt. Since then, there has been an ongoing effort at the museum to restore the connection, although not without setbacks. One of the biggest hurdles has been funding for the project, since a lot of the work remaining must be completed by a railroad contractor rather than volunteers from the museum. The museum finally has the funding in place to complete the work necessary this year, and construction is expected to start very soon. In the meantime, there are also tentative plans to use a temporary track connection between the museum trackage and the Metrolink line so that the new equipment can be brought to the museum. I don't have any firm dates on when any of that work will be happening just yet, but it is hoped that it will happen the first half of this year. As soon as I have more info available, I will provide an update on the community tab of the channel page. I have a number of travel plans already in the works for this year. In fact, I may already be on my first trip of the year by the time you see this. A number of people have asked me if I plan on seeing Canadian Pacific 2816 or the Union Pacific Big Boy this year, and my answer to that is yes, assuming the planned operations of both locomotives go forward. What my exact plans are for both of those will depend on the final trip schedules. Another thing on my radar is the planned move of the 2105 and other rail equipment to the SoCal Railway Museum. My goal is to film the move when it happens as part of my planned video about the project to save the 2105. In addition to these travel plans, I'd like to complete some longer video projects I've been working on for several years now. The next long-distance Amtrak video should be out late this spring, barring any unforeseen delays. I'm also actively working on planning for my next mini-documentary on another rail line following the great success of the Surfline series I did last year. Other video series I expect to continue this year are Train Talk, following a freight train, and Steam Trains Galore, with Part 12 making an appearance next November. I still have a long-term goal of doing some of my other series, including the Abandoned Rail Lines project, but I've had to put all of these plans on the back burner for now. I'm also working on completing several videos from material I filmed last year, including several more Canada videos, an entire series on the Montana rail link, and a look at the iron ore operations along Lake Superior in northern Minnesota. The last thing I should mention are my plans for the 1,000,000 subscriber milestone. I have many different ideas for potential videos and other things I could do, although I have not decided on anything just yet. Some of these include special trips or meetups, top 10 videos or other compilations, live streams, a photo book, or even another collaboration with a museum to save a piece of rail equipment. As we get closer to that point, I will probably put up a post on the community tab of the channel page with a few different options to choose from. In the meantime, I will continue to look at all of these ideas and more. Alright, well that does it for the 2024 year update. Now let's get to some questions. How are you able to travel throughout the country and get nice scenic shots of locomotives? Normally, I drive across the country because of all of my equipment. I usually plan out some stops along the way so I can be more efficient. What's your favorite locomotive? Favorite steam locomotive is SP4449. Favorite diesel is a tie between the F40PH and the Dash 8. What are your thoughts on the new CSX Heritage units? They're alright, it's an interesting concept. How do you manage to get thousands of views on your videos? Well, I've been doing this for quite a while now and have a large number of people who follow me. My best advice is to try to be as clear with your titles and thumbnails as you possibly can and to post regularly. What are your thoughts on the Metra SD70 Max, and do you plan to visit Chicago to catch them? Also, do you plan to do N-scale videos again? I like the Metra 70 Max. I'll definitely be going to Chicago to see them, hopefully at some point in the not too distant future. And I will hopefully be doing more N and HO scale videos in the future too. How does it feel to be pretty much a celebrity among rail fans? What are your thoughts on the California Bullet Train project? And will you film the Caltrain electric fleet once it's ready? I still just feel like a normal person, but it really is surreal to think about the number of people that enjoy watching my videos. It's pretty cool. I'm curious to see how the various high-speed rail projects turn out all over the country, including California, and I will hopefully have a chance to see the electrified Caltrain equipment at some point. What is your opinion on the Midwest Siemens Chargers, performance design? Have you been to Elkhart, Indiana? Well, I don't work on the Chargers personally, so I can't really speak to their performance from a first-hand knowledge point of view. I do like the Amtrak Midwest scheme, and I've been through Elkhart, but I have not filmed there yet. What was your favorite spot to railfan this year? That's really hard to choose. I'd probably say my top three are Toronto, the Iron Range in Minnesota, and Montana. What are your thoughts on the Brightline West project and any steam preservation locomotives you are interested in from this year? I think it's a neat idea. The LA to Las Vegas market has been in need of passenger rail service for over 25 years now, so it will definitely be nice to see train service between those two areas again. In terms of steam, I really like everything I saw. My favorites were the Kettle Valley, East Broad Top, and the Mount Rainier Scenic. When will you talk about Santa Fe 3751 in 2024? Are you ever going to film trains abroad? Can you make a history of American railroads video as a train talk special for a milestone? I will probably do some sort of a 3751 video this spring, time permitting. I have now filmed trains in Canada, and I would like to expand that in the future. Some places I've been looking at are Australia, Japan, Germany, the UK, Panama, and Brazil. In terms of a history of American railroads episode of Train Talk, I think that is definitely a very real possibility at some point in the not too distant future. What is your opinion on Wabtec's FLX drive locomotives? I think battery technology is interesting, but in general, really won't have widespread practical application outside of potential use in rail yards. But that's just my opinion. I honestly don't know at this point. Have you gotten the chance to catch any of CSX's heritage units yet? Not yet. Can you do bloopers from Train Talk? Possible, but More likely, if I do a blooper thing, it will be from actual video clips while I've been out filming. What is the earliest you've gone out, or how late have you stayed out? When I went to see CoasterFan2105 being moved from Anaheim at the end of 2022, I was up in the morning and stayed up all the way through the night until it finally passed around 4:30 in the morning the next day. And I don't think I got back to my hotel until about 5:30 a.m. What state have you filmed trains in the most? California, followed by Washington. What was your favorite train you saw in 2023? Probably the Montana Rail Link SD45, number 355, on a Bozeman to Laurel freight. Favorite retired steam excursion star, Frisco 1522. Have you rail fanned in Fort Wayne before, or you haven't? I have not. What is your favorite NS Heritage unit? Probably the New York Central one, number 1066. What is your number one favorite spot to shoot and watch trains? That's tough, but I will go with the Del Mar Cliffs in Southern California. When will more Cali stuff be posted? I posted a lot last year, and I actually just posted one earlier this month, but there should be several more this year. What is your opinion on the Metrolink MP36, and will you ever rail fan the Antelope Valley line? I like the MP36s, and I did an Antelope Valley line video a little while back, but I may do more in the future. Are you a fan of the Chinese steam engines that have been exported to the US? If so, which one is your favorite? Initially, I wasn't as interested in seeing them as the restored locomotives in the US, but I was pretty impressed with the 6988 in Iowa. That was a really neat locomotive. Is there a defunct short line railroad that you miss the most? The Everett and Monte Cristo. Will you film some more trains in Washington State? Yes, I live here now, so I film here pretty regularly. What kind of train talk videos are in store for 2024? I have a few ideas, but you'll have to wait and find out. Do you plan on going back to Chicago? Yes. What do you think of the newly painted Amtrak GP38s? They're neat. I like the 740 in the Phase 7 scheme. Do you ever plan on going to Georgia? I was briefly in Georgia a few years ago, but I would like to get back in the not-too-distant future. Are you planning on making another video about either following or riding on board another one of Amtrak's long-distance trains like the Coast Starlight and Autotrain videos? Yes. My next long-distance video is finally just about complete and should be ready to go sometime the first half of this year. Are there any other commuter or intercity corridor routes that you would be interested in doing a narrated video series on, just like the Surfline? Yes, and I have several possibilities for additional videos like the Surfline series. 3 to 5 of them are pretty far along right now, and I may even look into putting one of them together later this year. Will you ever do a train talk about the F40C? Probably not specifically on the F40C, but a more general video on Metra as a whole is a definite possibility. Could you make updates about Coaster2105 every month? It's basically the main character of the channel. I will probably continue to post updates when there are major changes or announcements, even once it gets to the museum. For now, it remains in safe storage awaiting final delivery. Do you have enough footage to make a video of trains across Washington State and one for trains across Oregon? I could put those videos together now, but there are a few more short line railroads that I'd like to film in both states just to be as thorough as I can. What is your favorite train in Canada? That's tough. I'm not really sure. Maybe the Canadian Pacific 2816. If we're just talking about different railroads, I really like Via, Go, and West Coast Express. Why do the MP36 and F59 PHI look so similar? Well, a lot of passenger diesels of that era were based on a freight locomotive model, which is true with the F59 as well as to some extent with the MP36 series, as it uses many components from EMD freight locomotives. There was also a push in the early 1990s and early 2000s to move back to streamlined locomotive design, which is why things moved away from the more boxy appearance like with the F40s and more toward the rounded off nose piece found in the F59 PHI. What steam locomotives from Alco, Lima, and Baldwin do you like? Too many to list all of them, but ALCO-wise, I really like the Big Boys and Challengers. Lima would be the Southern Pacific GS series, as well as Shea locomotives and the 284 Berkshires of the C&O, Nickel Plate, and Père Marquette. For Baldwin, a lot of the logging Mikados, Southern Pacific 462s, Santa Fe Northerns, and Northern Pacific 462s. Will the cross-country Amtrak trains like the California Zephyr get new passenger cars? Probably about 10 years from now. Will you do more videos on Bay Area heritage railroads like Roaring Camp and Niles Canyon? Most likely on some of them at some point. Niles was actually just featured in Steam Trains Galore 11 last November. Are you going to do video of SP 2479 and 1744 when they get restored at Niles? Most likely. Are you excited that 282 Prairie type Santa Fe 1010 is getting restored at the California State Railroad Museum? Yeah, I think that'll be pretty neat. What got you into rail fanning? Video my grandmother got for me many years ago called Daylight Express by Skyfire. Do you have or plan on building an HO scale layout? I'd love to build one eventually. Hopefully I'll have space in the future. Favorite special interest unit? Maybe Amtrak 164. Best catch of all time? This one. What is your favorite sounding diesel locomotive or DMU and electric locomotive or EMU? Diesel locomotive would be the Dash 8, DMU or rail car would be the Bud RDC. Electric locomotive is the AEM7, EMU is the Metra Highliner. Can you come back to the Central Valley and rail fan? I want you to do a video of the new venture cars on the San Joaquin. I'm sure I will be back to the Central Valley to film. I want to do a video on the California venture cars now that they're in service, maybe even this year. Best place to rail fan in San Diego, the Del Mar Cliffs. Favorite Amtrak route to ride, Pacific Surfliner north of Los Angeles or Amtrak Cascades. Thoughts on possibly realigning the Surfline due to coastal erosion? Well, I'd be disappointed to lose those spectacular views through Del Mar. That's probably the highlight of the trip from LA to San Diego. If you had to pick any commuter rail, what would it be? In terms of current favorite, probably Sounder. Before your channel, how long did you rail fan for? I've been watching trains since the mid-1990s. I've been taking pictures of them since the late 1990s, and I've been filming them since December 27th, 2002. Will you ever visit Echo Canyon in Utah? I was there for the big boy in 2019, but I'm sure I'll be back. Have you ridden behind 2103 at its new home? Yes, in fact, I should have a cab ride video for you coming within the next month or so. I was wondering if many of the clips in the Surfline series of videos were recorded in 2023. Some were, some in 2022, but a lot from previous years. There are clips in that video going all the way back to 2010, believe it or not. Have you ever considered using drones for your videos? Yes, I've considered it and would like to do it someday. It would take a bit of time to learn and get the appropriate license and training for it, but I definitely have not ruled it out. Can you upload a blooper reel? Maybe. That's actually something I have considered doing as one of the 1,000,000 subscriber videos later this year. What is your favorite train picture you've ever taken? That's pretty hard to pick just one, so here are a couple of my favorites in no particular order. When you hit 1,000,000 subscribers, can you do a fan message compilation, i.e. subscribers talking about the impact of your channel? Maybe. I've thought about doing something similar to that, but I haven't decided on anything yet. What happened to the Cascades Talgo sets? There are 2 Series 8 sets currently in service that are owned by the state of Oregon. Those mostly run north of Seattle now, with 1 or 2 trips a day in between Seattle and Portland as well. The Series 6 sets were all retired at the end of June 2020. Those sets were subsequently retired and scrapped with the exception of 1 car that is now at the Northwest Railway Museum in Snoqualmie, Washington. Will the Sprinter ever see a livery change or get new rolling stock? NCTD has been talking about getting new rolling stock for quite a while now. My guess is that it will probably be one of the Stadler Flirt vehicles. Would you ever railfan the CSX Trenton subdivision again? Possibly. How many operational steam locomotives have you seen in 2023? I think the total was 7. Are you going to do more subway videos? I'd like to do more light rail and subway videos in the future. Some systems lend themselves better to videos than others. If you haven't yet, I highly recommend looking at my BART video that I did in 2022. That one actually turned out way better than I thought it would. Which is your favorite Shea steam locomotive? Shea 10 at the Yosemite Mountain Sugar Pine Railroad, followed by cast number 5. Do you plan on going to Michigan soon? Probably not soon, but eventually. I was there briefly last year. What is your favorite place to railfan in Michigan? I haven't really been to enough different places in Michigan to have a favorite at this point, although I really do like the Huckleberry Railroad, if that counts. What is your favorite place to railfan in Ohio? I've been through Ohio, but I have not filmed any trains there yet. That's actually one of the few states I have not filmed anything in. Have you ever been on an Amtrak train, and if so, what routes? I have been on the San Diegan / Pacific Surfliner, San Joaquin, Coast Starlight, Amtrak Cascades, Wolverine, Auto Train, Acela Express, and the Downeaster. At what point did you decide this was your thing, or has it been more of a long evolution from early life interests and hobbies into what it is today? That's a really interesting question. It's definitely been more of a slow evolution. I've liked trains since I was very young. From that, it evolved to wanting to make my own videos about trains, to posting them for fun on YouTube as individual clips, to eventually making longer form videos on YouTube about things I wanted to cover, and from there it has shifted over the last decade or so to being a full-time thing. Does railfanning at Carlsbad now feel much more different than it did in the early 2010s? Yeah, a bit. For one thing, the trains look very different than they did back then. All new locomotives and new paint schemes for Coaster. I think you're probably talking about Carlsbad Village, but if you're talking about Carlsbad more generally, the look of southern Carlsbad, like with the power plant, is quite a bit different because the power plant's gone, and there have been some other changes over the years. Are you planning to film more trains in Iowa? Definitely as time allows. How many of the surviving big boys have you seen? 4004, 4005, 4006, 4014, and 4023. So 5 out of 8. Can you do a video on garden railroads? I'd really like to if I eventually get the opportunity. Will you do a train talk episode on low-frequency intercity passenger trains? I might, just to finish it up. There are still a few I haven't filmed though. How many times did you visit the Durango and Silverton? For sure, once in 2010, once in 2011, once in 2012, once in 2013, 3 times in 2015, 3 times in 2016, once in 2019, and once in 2021. So at least 12 times? Are you a full-time content creator now? I do YouTube and other video and photo work full-time. Will you be able to make more Passenger Trains Galore videos? Yes, I've kind of been cycling through all of the different ones in terms of making sequels. Steam Trains Galore is the one that I make sure to do every year. Will you do a train talk about Canadian-built locomotives? That is a very real possibility at some point. What is your favorite train YouTuber in Canada? I don't know if I have one individual favorite. I follow a number of different Canadian rail YouTubers from all over Canada. Have you filmed West Coast Express in British Columbia? Yeah, it's featured in the Canada Trains video as well as the 2023 Year in Review, and most definitely will get its own video on the channel at some point. Have you filmed Trinity Rail Express in Texas? Yes. K5LA or K5LLA, K5LA, SD70 Mac or SD70 Ace, SD70 Mac. Do you enjoy trains more in Washington or California? It really just depends on what you're talking about. Scenery is great in both states, but very different. There's more passenger train variety in California, but in general more freight variety in Washington, so they're both nice. Favorite commuter railroad besides Coaster? Sounder. What's your least favorite train catch you saw? I don't really have a least favorite. Will there be an episode of Train Talk about miscellaneous equipment such as different bells on locomotives and railroad crossings? Maybe episodes on individual subjects like that, but probably not a general miscellaneous video. Would you ever consider rail fanning Mass Central? Sure. Do you have any MTH O-scale Surfliner F-59s or cars? I have one F-59. What will they use Caltrain 936 for? Work or preservation? At this point, I'm not sure. What are your thoughts on the Amtrak Arrow and the Avelia Liberty? They're neat. I'm looking forward to seeing both in service soon. What do you think about the future of CoasterFan2105? Well, I will be talking about that in my video about saving the locomotive as soon as it makes it to the museum. Are there still some EMD F-59PH locomotives in service on Metrolink? There are a few in service that were rebuilt by Motive Power Inc. about 12 years ago. What is your favorite train from California? San Diego Coaster. Do you ever think you'll visit Canada again? Well, I'm pretty close to Vancouver, so definitely. Probably other parts of the country as well. Will you ever rail fan in Kentucky or Indiana in 2024? I'm not sure yet. In the face of burnout, what has motivated you to keep going? I have a passion project for the channel that I've been working on behind the scenes for several years now. It probably won't be done for another couple of years, but when it is, I think it will really be something pretty special. That's one of the big things that always keeps me going, even on days where I feel like I need a long break. Assuming Airplanes Galore is still in the planning phases, do you have any particular locations you thought about filming? I actually put most of the video together a while back, and I thought it was too boring the way I had it, so I decided to put it on hold for the time being. Maybe if I film some more planes in the future, I will put it together for one of the April Fool's videos, but I don't have any immediate plans right now. Are you interested in doing a video on LA Metro Rail or any light rail subway systems? I've done a few different light rail and subway videos over the years as I've had time, and will probably do more in the future. What are your thoughts on Cumbres and Toltec restoring the 492? What are your thoughts on Durango and Silverton restoring 478? What are your thoughts on Great Smoky Mountains restoring 722? You know, I love all steam locomotive restorations, so I'm never going to say no to seeing another steam locomotive back in service again. Which steam trains did you see operating for the first time in 2023? CP 3716 at the Cattle Valley Railroad, East Broadtop 16, Polson 70 at Mount Rainier, Essex 40, and the York 17. Do you plan on going to Durango at some point in 2024? I would like to, but that's time permitting. What is your take on the Napa Valley Wine Train's newest locomotive? Do you plan on filming it anytime soon? It's interesting, and possibly next time I'm in California. What would you say has been the most scenic railroad you've visited? That sounds like an awesome idea for a top 10 video. Recently I heard BART is removing their legacy trains from the scheduled service. Although they're not gone, what did you think of those? I really liked the old BART cars and am sad to see it go, but I'm also happy that the Western Railway Museum is at least preserving 3 of them. What is your camera setup? I currently use now out of production Canon XF400 video cameras. Will you do any more history of train companies such as Santa Fe, Union Pacific, Metrolink, Southern Pacific? Most likely, yes. In fact, I tentatively have one planned for later this year. Do you think that CPKC is going to be a major rival to BNSF and Union Pacific? Well, there will be a little bit of competition for the north-south freight traffic. What diesel locomotives, in your opinion, cemented its legacy in American railroading? Too many to name, but in the modern era, probably the GEVO, just because of how many locomotives have been built. Do you think a GEVO should be preserved? When they are retired, yes, definitely. If you return to Utah, do you plan to ride the Front Runner? It's definitely a possibility. I rode it in 2019, but I didn't make a video of it. Will you ever come back to Florida? Yes, I want to get back to Florida, but not sure when that will be just yet. When and where did you see your first steam locomotive? It was definitely at Disneyland, but I'm not sure which one or what year for certain. Sometime in the mid-1990s. Not counting theme parks, most likely one of the shays at the Yosemite Mountain Sugar Pine Railroad. How does it feel to have a large following? It's really neat. It's pretty wild. What is the northernmost, southernmost, easternmost, or westernmost place you have seen a train pass by? I have been in 49 out of 50 US states at this point, most of which I have filmed at least one train in. So westernmost and northernmost would be in Alaska. Southernmost would probably either be Brightline or Tri-Rail in Miami, Florida, and easternmost would be the Downeaster in Maine. Have you collected any railroad memorabilia? Yes, I have collected a few different things over the years. Whistles, horns, bells, lanterns, some builder's plates, and number boards, and a few timetables. Would it be cool if SP-4449 returned to the Pacific Northwest in the black BNSF livery, and would you do a mini documentary on the excursion? Yeah, it would be neat to see, and I would definitely make a video about it. What does disposing of old locomotives mean when they are retired and permanently withdrawn from service? It can mean anything from reselling them to a different operator to salvaging them for scrap, depending on the situation. Do you have a timeline for when the CoasterFan2105 locomotive will arrive in San Diego County? 2103 is already at the museum in Campo, so if you haven't, take a look at my mini-series on that locomotive at the museum. What camera do you use to record videos? Canon XF400. Have you ever railfanned the summit of Sandpatch Grade? I have not been to the summit, but it would be cool to see. What was it like seeing the NS and Warbonnet train last January? It was really cool. What was your favorite trip from this year? It's hard to pick one, but I really liked going to the Iron Range and Canada. What is your favorite Amtrak 50th anniversary unit? Amtrak 301. What's your favorite engine at Roaring Camp? The Sonora. Where do you think the F40s of Caltrain are going to go after the electrification is finished? I honestly have no idea. There are probably a few different railroads that would buy them, though. Are you a fan of the P42s, and do you think they should be retired? I like the P42s. I obviously don't work on them firsthand, so I don't really have an answer for if they should be retired or not. It would be neat to see them continue in service in some form, but there may be other factors at play. What is the railroad you've had the most fun photographing, and why? At this point, probably Amtrak, just because of all of the different places I've been and trains I've seen across the country. How long does it usually take you to produce a video? It really depends on what it is. Some videos take a couple days to a week, and others take many months, or in the case of some bigger projects, years. Have you thought about filming other tourist railroads in Portland/Southwest Washington, i.e. Chalachi Prairie Railroad? Yeah, I've actually been to the Chalachi Prairie and filmed there before. Currently, their steam locomotive is out of service, but I'd like to go back once it is running again. Do you want a can of Pepsi in the near future? Yes. Do you plan on making another top 10 video in 2024? I'd like to do more top 10 videos, and I have a few ideas. I just haven't had the time to do one for a while. What are some of your fondest memories from the Del Mar Cliffs? One of them was seeing 3751 go by in 2010. How do you tell the difference between a raised letter K5LA horn and other variants? That will probably have to wait for another video on train horns at some point in the future. What are your recommendations for camera settings to use? It really depends on your camera and lighting conditions. In general, I try to keep my camera at ISO 400, f8, and 1/1000th of a second and make adjustments to that as needed. Do you have any plans to make it here to the Southwest in 2024? I would like to, but to be determined. Are you ever going to go on a tour and meet fans, and when are you going to make a train talk about bells? Doing a meet and greet is something I've thought about. I'm just not sure what the level of interest would be from people in doing something like that. In terms of a train talk on bells, I might do something like that in the future, but I haven't written any kind of a script for that one yet. Do you plan to come to the Bay Area next year? I don't have any confirmed plans just yet. What's one train you haven't seen yet and would like to see in 2024? Canadian Pacific 2816. What is a project you are looking forward to? My next long-distance Amtrak train project, which will hopefully be out this spring. Have you ever been or thought about filming in Idaho? I have filmed a little bit in northern Idaho, but I would like to film there more in the future. Is there a confirmed date for when 2105 will be delivered to the SoCal Railway Museum? As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, there's no confirmed date yet, but I will definitely mention it on the channel when I have that information. What hardware and software do you use for your videos? I currently use Final Cut Pro and film with a Canon XF400. What is your favorite steam train whistle, and would you go to Greenfield Village in Michigan? Favorite whistle is probably a Southern Pacific 6-chime. And I have been to Greenfield Village before, but not for several years. I'd like to get back there at some point. Did you enjoy your spectacular visit to Canada? Yes, it was awesome. Have you ever rode the Las Vegas monorail? I have not been on the Las Vegas monorail. When will you be on the East Coast in 2024? No current plans as of now, but we shall see. Can you do a video about the Amtrak Siemens Venture Aero cars? Eventually, I do plan to, so stay tuned. What is your favorite freight train? Trona Railroad out in Searles, California. What other famous steam locomotives do you like in addition to 44, 49, 3751, 4014, 2472, SPNS 700, Eureka number 4, Rio Grande 315, Paramarquette 1225. If you could meet one person, railroad employee and rail fan, who would it be? Oh gosh, I really don't know. I'd have to think a little bit about that one. If you could go see one locomotive, what would it be? Canadian Pacific 2816. Do you plan on seeing 1225 in the coming years? No immediate plans, but I would like to. Do you think it's possible in the future that in order to satisfy California's demand for new diesel emissions laws, railroads will convert their diesels and main lines to third rail power? I think there is close to a 0 chance of that happening, just because third rail is really, really dangerous in a yard switching kind of environment. If freight railroads were to electrify, it would definitely be overhead, but even that I don't think is going to happen at this point. I think that the shift over the next decade will likely be toward hydrogen, but we will see. Are you going to be filming the BNSF bringing Coaster 2105 to the SoCal Train Museum? Yes. What is your favorite monorail? The Seattle monorail. Well, that does it for this year's Q&A. Thanks to everyone for submitting questions. I'm looking forward to another great year. As always, a special thanks to all my supporters on Patreon. Remember to click the subscribe button and select the Receive All Notifications option to be updated every time I post on YouTube. I'll see you next Friday for an all-new railroad-themed adventure right here on the YouTube channel. That's it for now. Until next time, I'm Mike Armstrong. I'll see you down the line. Thanks for watching.